Hi there, welcome back to the Community of Readers video blog. We're following the Old Testament readings for the Monkey Bar Challenge. This week we're looking at the whole of the Book of Judges. This is called the Republic of Heaven. I'm recording this one day before Britain's latest royal wedding, the marriage of Prince William and Kate Middleton. It's an event which has divided the nation between those who love the mythology of prince and princess, those who think the entire system should be dismantled, and what seems to me like the majority of people who frankly couldn't give a monkey's. But it has raised some questions. Why do we have a monarchy still when we're supposed to live in a democracy? And what will the monarchy look like in the coming years? Well, similar kinds of questions are being raised by the Book of Judges for the Israelite community. Now, Judges is a work of history, but it's very different to those books which have come before it. Exodus to Joshua deals with 60, maybe 70 years of history. Judges itself deals with several hundred in just the one book. And it's a very different style as well. It kind of flits here and there from different legends of old, never really saying anything, but implying much. We're left laughing, crying, and often just staring blankly at the pages, trying to work out why on earth Israel's history would be remembered this way. But what I love about Judges is the brutal honesty with which it deals with life after Moses and Joshua. Once these leaders have gone, after spending so much energy on making Israel a Yahweh-focused community, well, in reality, Yahweh's forgotten within a generation. And we've spent so long, from Exodus right through to Joshua, reading of the history through the lens of its leaders. Now we get to see the other side of the coin and understand a community that is really not that convinced. It's easy to forget just how much change Israel had undergone since Egypt. An entire national constitution had been set up, not to mention the national covenant with Moses at Sinai, promising this land, but in a different way to the way it had been promised to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. Before Exodus 20 and the giving of the law, which starts with the Ten Commandments, there'd never been any demand of anybody for any kind of absolute, exclusive allegiance to Yahweh in the way that we see with Moses. Those patriarchs had just had to respond on faith. But with Moses we get this demand for something total. Now, with Moses gone and Joshua gone, the people of Israel are free, and well, it turns out they hadn't impressed the law of the Lord upon their children as they were commanded to do in Deuteronomy 6 verse 7. And as those little ones grew up in a land that they would call home, they didn't share the same prejudice or fear or whatever it was of their neighbours that led Moses to be so determined to create an exclusive community. Israel, this giant family, had mellowed a little bit and also lost its momentum. The stories of the Judges are stories of tribal loyalties and disorganised leadership. These adventurers who keep Israel's enemies at bay but really do little more for the people. And without spiritual leadership, mixed with all the local Baals, there really is little left of faith a la Moses. But Judges ends with a very damning indictment of what the people of Israel were like without a king. And that's really the thing. You see, Judges is written by a monarchist. The whole of the Old Testament story really is the establishment of the nation of Israel in its own right. So from Exodus to Joshua, we've read of this setting up of the national constitution, and then with Joshua, the invasion of this land held on promise. And then after Judges, we will have in 1 Samuel the setting up of the monarchy, and we will read the story of how that monarchy progresses. So this tiny book, Judges, between Joshua and 1 Samuel, deals with about 400 years of history just brushed aside because the people didn't have a king. So this raises questions. It raises questions for Israel. The theme of king and the rule of the kingdom will be something that goes on and becomes fundamental to the New Testament story. But for Israel itself, this idea that, well, anarchy brings about just a complete debacle, well, that really reinforces why we need a king. For us as 21st century Christian readers, our perspective isn't dominated by land or ritual or kings or priests. But there is a question: do we need a king? Not for our national constitution, interesting though that question is if you live in Britain, but for our spiritual life, especially given that we live in the kingdom of God. For those of us living in a democracy, has the notion of just one authority had its day? Are we really better off with a set of commands? Didn't Jesus set out some kind of different value system to just obeying? Is Philip Pullman right? Would we be better off serving in the Republic of Heaven? Here's some questions for reflection. Who do you lead? Who leads you? Ask yourself why and where. You can find out more about Community of Readers and the Monkey Bar Challenge at our website, communityofreaders.com. Till next week, and maybe a bit on the Psalms. Have a great week. Cheers.